Hello and welcome to BQ Prime. I'm your host Vikas Srivastava, and today we have esteemed panel with us from the solar sector, Mr. Gautam Das, who is the founder of Oorjan Cleantech, Mr. Puneet Goyal, he's the founder and director of SunAlpha Energy, and Mr. S.K. Gupta, he is the CFO of AMP Energy Solar. So welcome to BQ Prime, all of you. As you all are aware, today we have a discussion on pre-budget expectations from the solar industry. As I have spoken to all of you in the past, and you all have already briefed me about what the expectations generally would be. So I would like to start with Mr. S.K. Gupta. What exactly his expectations are as a developer, and given the kind of challenges that we are facing right now in the industry.
So, in terms of the expectations of renewable industry, especially from the of the developers from the continuing budget and from the government, are primarily a regular, continuous supply of high quality modules to the industry to ensure that projects are getting completed in time. And the other expectation is that financing costs should be aligned to the international levels in the range of 3 to 5%, so that we are in a position to execute projects which are viable to execute. Now, on the first part, the government has put some artificial barriers like ALLM and BCDs on import of cells and modules. So I think in the current context and the way the current situation in the country is, both these ALLM and BCDs are actually putting a very negative role and impact on the industry. The reason is simple and clear. If you look at the current demand and supply mismatch in the country, we realize that there is a huge gap on the supply side while the demand is high, and a lot of projects are suffering because adequate quantity of modules at competitive prices are not available in the country. There is another dilemma. On top of that, what is happening is that whatever supply is available within the country on the cell and the module side, a quantity of these are actually getting exported by the manufacturers, further leading to shortage of modules and cells in the country. So what we strongly feel is that till the time this domestic demand supply mismatch between cells and modules in the country is closed through new capacities which are getting implemented and stabilized under the PLI route. Number one, the LLM scheme should be removed, both from the government and the private sector, including the CNI projects. Number one. And the second thing is that even the BCD and the BCD on both import of cells and modules should also be brought down to zero level, so that domestic manufacturers can then start getting to supply to the domestic demand. And the third thing is that all exports of modules from the country, cell and modules from the country, should be stopped till the time this realignment is done. So I think this is one of the most important and key requirements. We also request the government that the project import scheme for renewable scheme should be reopened with concessioning 5% import duty. So these are some of the key things which are coming on the cell and the module side.
Okay, great. I would like to move to the EPC players also, Mr. Goyal and Mr. Das. What exactly your opinion would be on this? Because what we have come to know from our experience is that governments, once it is implementing a policy, they hardly go back on it. So to expect them to remove ALMM or to remove BCD would be expecting too much from them. So what exactly your opinion would be? To begin with, Mr. Das, we can give your opinion.
As Mr. Gupta said, see, the fact is there is a huge demand supply gap. I mean, in a developing a business system like specifically renewable energy, the supply you get from India is not sufficient to cater your demand. And there are too many uncertainties at the same time. Everyone, including me, would like to see made in India or product manufactured in India. So PLI is definitely a good step. So 19,500 crore, I think, was budgeted last time. That's a welcome step. Rather, I would say increase as much as you can afford. If it is 20,000, 25,000 or 30 crore, that depends on the affordability. Please revisit if you can increase that. to get boost to domestic manufacturing. But on the other side is steep import duty, where you can hardly, hardly in the sense, really hardly 40-50% of your manufacturing capacity can cater to the supply. Then 40% is very, very steep. Reduce that duty if possible close to zero. But a single step 40% is very, very steep, and consider that and bring it down to maybe 10-15% or 20% on the outer side. Similarly, ALMM should be completely out when there is no supply, and there you're working on PLI plus you're imposing a duty. ALMM should be wiped out immediately. As you build capacity to a 60-70% what you can cater, that time you can probably think. So too many things together is genuinely hampering the spirit of solar adoption or any renewable energy adoption, and that should go. And there are two other components is that access to financing, as Mr. Gupta already said. People in the overseas market are borrowing at dollar rate about 2 to 3%, and there will be some bit of forward premium put together. It's still very, very competitive. In rupee term, if we can get loan at 6 or 7%, which is marginally close to GDP, that's what will give a real boost to the pace of adoption.
What is the current borrowing cost, mostly for the developers right now that we are getting in India?
It depends. For a larger projects, which are landmark projects, it could be anything between say 8 to 12%, depending on who is lending and who is borrowing, and depending on the credit worthiness or the feasibility of the project. If you look at rooftop space, it's ranging. If it's NBFC, they will be charging maybe 14-15% as well, right? Because easy access to low cost loan not necessarily available from the national banks. If it is coming from national bank, the quantum is very, very less and the process is very tedious. Turnaround time is very long. Then it could be close to 10% or 9%. But NBFC could be charging as high as 14-15%.
Okay. Coming to Mr. Goyal, Mr. Goyal, if you can also share your opinion or thoughts on the expectations from budget.
Sure. So I think last couple of years has been an extremely volatile time for the Indian solar industry in terms of all the policy changes that have been happening. So on a very larger level, we all would like long-term stability or a view on where the policy is going for the next 5 years. Even if we are talking about this every year, I think a 5-year view would be something nice for us to plan and be ready for, because we have seen a lot of knee-jerk reactions happening in the last couple of years. Now that being said, I think most of the major requirements of an EPC or a developer or a consumer in India have been charted out by Gautam ji and SK Gupta ji. So more so from the consumer perspective, since SunAlpha operates more into the commercial and industrial sector, a consumer would like a lower GST, because a lot of them either are not able to take inputs of GST because of their industry-specific situation. A lot of them are able to. However, there was a time when there was a 0% tax, then it came up to 5%, which went up to 8.9%, and now we are talking about 13.8%. Are we going towards the luxury automobile way, which I don't think solar is definitely not. I think most of us would agree. Solar is something that India needs. We need it to be something that is manageable. GST is important, but it has to be manageable, and we think that should come down to 5% so that it becomes more lucrative for CNI consumers. That is one thing that is there from the CNI perspective. The modules, yes. The intention of any PLI is to ensure that the benefit passes to the end consumer, and the overall burden on the taxpayer reduces. However, we also have noticed that most of the modules, instead of coming to the Indian market, are also being exported. So that end benefit, I don't know whether it's actually being passed on to the end consumer. Third, we feel that even though there are guidelines being created in the center, the actual implementation, as we all know, are the nodal agencies and the DISCOMs of every state. So the communication and the incentivization of the discoms to go solar, because the central government has targets which they want to meet. That can only happen if all the stakeholders move together. So the discoms need to be incentivized to encourage rooftop solar and open access green energy for CNI. Yes, so I think that incentivization needs to be worked. That needs to be worked along with the discoms and see how that can be promoted as well with all the stakeholders together.
Right. I also remember last time when I spoke to you, spoke about accelerated depreciation, for captive as well as for other solar sector.
Absolutely. So the tax depreciation, we have seen the depreciation from 100%, and today it's coming to 40 plus 20 as we call it, accelerated plus additional for CNI. But it's probably time to give a boost to the CNI sector. Even though there have been measures that have been taken, but on-ground implementation has been quite dismal in the last 3 to 4 years with all the targets in place. The accelerated depreciation is a very important incentive for the CNI sector, and I believe that should come back to the 80 plus 20 or the 100%, so that there is more incentive for investments to come from the consumers. Because there are two perspectives here. There is one perspective where a developer invests, and the second perspective is where the consumer invests. So yes, the accelerated depreciation is a huge incentive for a consumer to invest where he saves a significant amount of tax.
Right. We all also know that there has been a lot of artificial increase in the prices of the panel after the BCD was implemented, or rather the policy was announced. So I would like to have your perspective, all of yours, like how much increase you all have seen in the panel prices, and if it has really affected or postponed the projects by the developers. First, our developers' opinion, and then the EPC opinion I can have on it. Mr. Gupta, what's your take on that?
Yeah, so I fully agree with your point that the imposition of BCD has certainly adversely affected, number one, the availability of modules within the country, and also the economic viability of the projects. So that's a true fact, and the duty rates are very high. I think more than that, the need ultimately in the medium long term of the government should be to provide a level playing field to the developers where they have an option to procure modules from the domestic industry or from imports wherever they are available at a competitive price. The government should not encourage something like a cost plus structure for the domestic industry by giving them productions like this. If we want to make our industry world class, then it is necessary that we should be competing with the world class standards. Maybe an initial break for 2-3 years could be given, especially to the cell industry, because the capacities there were small and larger capacities are being implemented there. But when it comes to modules have been there in India for a long time, and capacity expansion and project stabilization, then modules are relatively very easy. So government should build up the whole structure and the whole mechanism in a manner that there is a competitive pricing available to the domestic manufacturers, domestic users also. And manufacturers have a role to export if they get an opportunity, which they are doing right now. Most of the people are doing the same route. Here, I would like to say one more thing which is slightly different. Maybe I'm detouring, but this is very relevant for the industry. And this is what I like to be conveyed to the government. Look, we are worried about import from one country. And therefore, we are trying to say that, do in-house manufacturing. We are doing in-house manufacturing, but ultimately in that process, what we are doing? We are still importing most of the equipment from the same country, one country dependence. And the other thing is that most of the technology is also available and centered in that country, and maybe some smaller pockets in Europe and Japan and Korea also. So I think the way the PLI scheme has been done for module and cell manufacturing in the country, the government should now start thinking of, number one, establishing a large equipment manufacturing base in the country for module and cell manufacturing, and even for ultimately for wafer manufacturing in the country. India has been very strong in equipment manufacturing all these years, wherever they have gone, whichever industry they have gone into. And I'm sure they are very competent companies and entrepreneurs in the country who can easily take up this challenge. So start domestic manufacturing of equipment, start providing PLI and other tax breaks to this industry so that they can, build up capacities to world class scales in terms of own in-house manufacturing of these equipment. The other thing which is required is that while equipment manufacturing gets taken care of by this, we still are dependent on technology for this thing. Again, if we want to create a world class capacity, the whole R&D ultimately start moving back into the country. And it's not very complicated also. There are established labs which are available in Europe, in Japan, and Korea, who have done a lot of work in this area. Government should, start putting up allocation of capital for setting up, few labs in India also, which will be working exclusively on the emerging and the future technologies for cells and modules. And for that, initially, they can even do collaboration with these international labs in Europe and Japan and Korea. And they can also start joining hands with the local IITs who have done an excellent role in doing similar support functions for newer technologies wherever they have come. So if this package is completed and this also gets rolled out in the next 1 or 2 years, and get stabilized in the country in the next 3 to 5 years, then we'll be calling ourselves a truly in-house manufacturer of cell and module in the country, and our dependence will completely go away. Our ability to reduce cost at drastic level, our ability to bring in best technologies at competitive prices will be possible for the industry in that case. So that's something which I have represented to to the government and right up to the energy minister in one of my other meetings also. But I very strongly feel that this is one area where we should be working upon. Thank you.
Gautam, if you would like to share.
See, the whole objective is that economy and sustainability should go hand in hand for a long-term positive impact. The giving the whole being over prescriptive and definitely giving PLI is a good idea. But the whole objective is that cost of adoption or the pace should be maintained. It should not be the victim. After introducing PLI, plus there are many policies of duty and ALMM. Fact is, in last 2 years, panel price went up by almost 50%. So it's counterproductive. When you are in a growth phase, anything which is impacting the cost and definitely, diminishing parity between grid and renewable energy power is detrimental to the industry. So at the cost of repetition, government should look at a serious look at PLI. You increase, ALMM should be eliminated. As Mr. Gupta and Puneet also said, and BCD should be looked at, if not zero, at maybe 20% odd. And one more thing Puneet repeated, I'm repeating, is that GST is obscenely high. Like any service or any luxury product, you pay 18%, and today you are 13.8%. It was 0, 5, then 8.9 and 10.8%. These are counterproductive, and solar adoption or renewable energy adoption should not be the victim. The whole intent is counterproductive. Should be serious look at that. Other thing is that may not be relevant to this budget, that other ministry need to look at. There are a lot of policies. Implementation is a big hassle. For example, it's a land mount project. If it's stuck, I have my carry cost. If we invest, for example, 100 crore in a project, if it is stuck for, say, 1 year, when I've already invested 50 crore, the carry cost on 50 crore, even if it is 10% for a year, it's 5 crore rupees. So implementation should be seriously looked at, and there should be accountability. And same thing goes for net metering. There is no predictability. Every discount behave differently. So those things should be implemented. So budget is one thing, but respective ministries should have an objective to that make life easier as far as adoption is concerned.
Yeah, Puneet, you would like to give your thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure. So adding to what Gautamji also told, making our transmission sector more strong, strengthening the evacuation from the green energy open access perspective is also probably one of the key points that any open access developer or investor will want. In a lot of states that we are developing and all the developers are developing, evacuation has been an issue, and strengthening of the transmission line is a long-term process. A few states have taken some proactive measures, but majority of the states are still lagging behind. There can be a financial push probably in this budget, where there can be incentives for strengthening the evacuation facilities in the states, which can further strengthen the implementation of green energy open access. There can be say a central portal or something more robust, because there are tools in the market, but the implementation and the sort of the validity of those tools are still in question, whether how effective they are. So if those can be imposed in a more strong manner, where a consumer and an investor can come together and join along with the DISCOM, who is probably one of is the most important stakeholder for all of us, then that also will enable a better push for green energy open access as well as for rooftop.
So quickly, one last question to all of you. One thing is like this is our expectation. The other is reality and being practical. So what from your discussions with the ministry people, from officials, you all have come to understand that this may come up in this budget, in terms of duties, in terms of LMM policies. So to start with, Gautam, if you can give your opinion on that.
So if you ask my expectation, I will expect all of them what we said. But in reality and the mid position, I would say would be very happy to see, and still happy. I mean, not even if we don't get everything. This ALMM and high import duty should be looked at immediately. And third thing is GST. Fourth thing is, which is not necessarily fully part of finance ministry, is that time-bound lean operation, and make DISCOM and Transco's party and let them collaborate. If we can make them, we're halfway done.
All right, Puneet.
Yeah. So quickly, those same points: ALMM, import duty reduced, GST to be reduced, incentivize DISCOMs to promote CNI green energy open access as well.
All right, Mr. Gupta, to conclude.
So I fully endorse the views which have been expressed by Mr. Das and Mr. Gautam, and Mr. Puneet earlier. I like to add upon one more I like to build upon and add one more point there, which is very, very, very necessary. Last year in the budget, the government said that they will do a green bond scheme for PSU projects. So why this differential? I think the industry has been harping for competitive interest and project financing schemes for a lot of time right now. The government should ensure that agencies like IREDA, PFC, RAC, and other such agencies of the government which are specialized in giving loans to renewable and energy industry, they should be helped through either a government guarantee scheme or something like this to raise funds at very, very competitive prices from international market at 6-7%, which are available there for highly rated bonds, which are backed by some sort of a government sponsorship. And these people should be then advised to keep a small margin and fund the Indian growth story on energy and renewables for the next 5-10 years time or so. And I'm very confident that if this one step is taken by the government, then it will be a very strong positive, movement for the industry in the coming years. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Sorry, just adding one more final. So this one world, one grid that is being promoted by the central government. I think we should first look inwards and promote a one country, one grid to stabilize everything internally, and then look at the world.
All right. Thank you. I hope it happens soon for the country. And hopefully we'll meet again after the budget, analyzing what happened, what didn't. So thank you very much for participating in this panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank